So, guys, I just did a video about Swerve Strickland and reasons why he should retain the AEW championship. And now I want to do a video of why at Forbidden Door, Will Ospreay should win the AEW championship. So, here are my reasons. The number one reason is he should turn heel. And because this would be very unexpected. And definitely, it would actually be good for the Don Callis family. Because honestly, you cannot do something like have a faction and your top person, which is Will Ospreay and the Don Callis family, he actually is a babyface. It would make sense for him to turn heel. And what would happen if he did something where Don Callis comes out with the Young Bucks and they become a super faction? So Ospreay is going to Ospreay's gonna be the AEW champion, and then they're gonna hold some titles, and then also the emphasis should be on you know, in ROH that the Don Callis family wins some titles or even on Collision. You could do Takeshita as the ROH champion. Like, you really have to do something where if you want Ospreay to be the heel and you want to make a super faction between the EVPs and the Don Callis family, like you say the EVP family, you turn it into this big type of thing, really. That would be really good. Nobody would see that coming. It would make and the good thing is that Ospreay looks like a threat. He can have great matches, and he would be very intimidating, really. And it'll be like, who could take down the Super Force? Because with the EVPs, only Okada looks like a real wrestler. Like the Jack Perry and the EVPs, they're kind of like, I can kick their asses. Like they look like a bunch of high school geeks, really. Like they look like a bunch of high school geeks. Like they're in the theater club. They don't look like big and strong like this. So. So definitely it would make their faction more believable if you have Ospreay turn heel, and even if you did something like have them merge with the EVPs. And then Don Callis he has a charisma to him as well, really. Imagine him on Collision and taking over that show. Or imagine him on ROH. You have Takeshita versus Mark Briscoe. You have, Kyle Fletcher and Hobbs versus the ROH Tag Team Championships. You take it off the Undisputed Kingdom, or you actually recruit more people into the Don Callis family. You have Trent Beretta. You can have Trent Beretta and Kyle Fletcher hold the hold the tag team titles in ROH, and a couple other things. Or you decide to recruit some more people that are a little lost on the roster. Really, I'm not sure who could. I don't know like people off the bat really. But there are some people that they can definitely recruit, really. Another thing that I will say about Ospreay, because that's a long story, so like definitely turn him heel would do a lot more positives. It also subvert expectations. The next thing is that I do not like repeat matches, but sometimes repeat match itself. If you want to do Ospreay versus Bryan Danielson at Wembley Stadium, that would be a draw. If you want to do like what I'm dreaming of doing is like do Ospreay, MJF, Bryan Danielson, and Swerve, a fatal four-way at Wembley Stadium. You have 8 weeks to build this up. They're all good talkers. They can make a great match out of it. I would think that would sell out Wembley Stadium if you do that. The next thing is that, obviously there are people that want to see Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay. So definitely, that would set that up for the world title, really. Kenny Omega would come back from surgery. He'd be like, I haven't been champion for a couple of years. That would be the thing to do, really. And then also, if you have Omega in the mix, what's going to happen if he becomes champion or he's about to become champion, the EVPs get involved, then you do a Kenny Omega versus EVP feud. So that could set that up, really. I think my next thing is that Ospreay is Tony's model wrestler. Like Tony Khan likes AEW wrestlers to be athletic, do a lot of great spots, have high endurance matches, and then also have those 5-star matches. So it's something that Tony wants to have, really. So it's almost like, imagine if there are wrestlers like Daniel Garcia that's like, I want to get the title off of Will Ospreay. So I have to do so. Wrestlers like Daniel Garcia who decide to wrestle more, have better matches, they improve, and you see this growth of a wrestler trying to gain all those skills to fight Will Ospreay one day. You could have a lot of matches. You can tell a compelling story of that Rocky type of person, or that Rocky or Rudy type of person. They're going to go through all these turbulations to grow and become bigger and stronger, and then just to have that match and win that title. There's a lot you can tell from that. The next thing I would say is that if you make Ospreay champion, he is a good talker, and I think that Swerve. I don't remember a lot of his promos. There's some things that he says that are good, but Ospreay, he does have a really great voice. Really, he could be a really good champion. You need a wrestler with a great voice. I was watching that video of the Miz in Tough Enough where he gets body slammed by the Big Show, and one of the reasons why he's in that one of the reasons why he's from Tough Enough. And now those other bigger people is because he has a voice. Really, he knows how to talk. He knows how to act like a big deal. When you look at Swerve, he talks like a regular person, really. I think that he doesn't have the gusto in his voice like you see with Will Ospreay. Will Ospreay knows how to be loud and proud, really. So if you want wrestlers to be wrestlers, they have to have that. And I think, and then Ospreay does it way better than Swerve. I think the other thing that I would say is that it would really subvert expectations, because the other thing is that a lot of people would expect Ospreay to win at Wembley Stadium. So it would be something to have Ospreay win right now, and he does have a lot of momentum. But I do think that the top guy in the company right now is Swerve, and then the next person is Ospreay. And for a while it was like Adam Copeland, but I do kind of think that, honestly, he winning right here would pop the audience and make people excited for Wembley Stadium. But I just think that that's not the right moment, really. But it would subvert expectations if you had to win it for Forbidden Door, and it's sometimes being unpredictable is expected. I think a lot of people expect Ospreay to win, but there's a lot of people who don't expect him to win, because they may say, why would you want him to win at Forbidden Door when you can kind of do that at Wembley Stadium? The next thing that I would say is that, honestly, if you have Ospreay win and turn heel, it sets up Blood and Guts, because they usually have that match in July. You want to sell out that Texas show. You want a lot of people talking about AEW. What if you had Ospreay and the EVPs form a faction, and then you have Swerve form a faction with MJF and a few other people, and they have a Blood and Guts match? What would happen if you do what I was saying? What would happen if you had him turn heel and becomes the AEW champion, and he says that he's declaring war on all of AEW, including ROH, and then you kind of saw all those Don Callis family members take over ROH, and Death Before Dishonor, you had the matches like Takeshita versus Mark Briscoe would be an excellent match. You have Kyle Wheeler and Trent Beretta versus the ROH Tag Team Champions, Matt Taven and Mike Bennett. You can have you can find a woman. Maybe we have Nyla Rose, or you have like another female join the faction, or maybe they have Mercedes Moné, and you have like a woman versus take the title off Athena. Or if you say like, okay, Athena, why don't you join our faction and turn heel? You've been underappreciated. We'll make you appreciated. So that could be another thing too, where that would make Death Before Dishonor a big deal. That would make all the Texas shows a big deal. And newsflash, everybody, that the Texas show is actually if you want to get a good ticket, it's $65. So instead of selling $65 tickets to fill it up, you fill up with really great matches and all that. So, so like you said, it could there be so much marketability with this to other shows. And that's all I really got to say, really. I think that the best thing is that you really have to kind of make sure that whatever you do, you kind of build up, the next couple of pay-per-views. I think that Swerve, as I said, winning at Forbidden Door, then you have him have a fatal four-way with MJF, Bryan Danielson, Ospreay, and another member. I think that'll be good. Or you do, MJF, Will Ospreay, Swerve, and I'm drawing a blank, really. MJF, Ospreay, and Swerve. They need to have like a triple threat, or MJF, Ospreay, Swerve, and Bryan Danielson. MJF, Ospreay, Swerve, and Bryan Danielson. I'm sorry I have a brain fart, but if you do a fatal four-way match with them at Wembley Stadium, that would be really great. And then you can say, okay, well, what would happen if it was one-on-one? Then you'd set up Swerve versus Jack Perry at All Out, then Swerve versus Jack Perry at Wrestle Dream, and then maybe you take the title off of him at World's End. You can do Swerve versus MJF at World's End. That's the anniversary of him losing the title. Or that'll be the Swerve path. Or you could do something like where Ospreay turns heel. So You can have Ospreay versus Bryan Danielson at Wembley Stadium, and then at All Out, I would actually do Ospreay versus Swerve one more time, because I think that that would be the better match. Then you could do Ospreay versus Bryan Danielson at Tacoma Washington show. Like, this is actually where he wants to retire. This is his last chance at glory, really. And then I would say that at Full Gear, you would have to find somebody else, really. Like, you'd have to, like, kind of make a top babyface. I think, you know, you can do Adam Copeland versus Ospreay. They've always wanted to have a match with each other. Then at World's End, you can do MJF versus Ospreay. Anniversary since he lost the title, really. And you can kind of do something with that. Then maybe at Revolution, you can kind of do, like, Ospreay versus, you know, another person. Maybe build up. Maybe you have Hobbs leave the Undisputed Kingdom. Leave the Domhouse family, and you can build a new champion with that. Or you have Ospreay versus Daniel Garcia if you make him a big deal. Or even if you can do Orange Cassidy, because Orange Cassidy's really over. If they turn into a more serious wrestler, that could be a good match. Or there's other like top baby faces that they can do, really. But the thing about it is that I think you get more mileage out of Swerve as the champion. But with Ospreay, as I said, I think that this is more going to be a Dave Meltzer direction. And I don't think that, and as I said, I think he's going to be a little bit like Cody Rhodes, where, you know, putting the title on him may be a big deal for Tony and other people, but longer term, it may not be a good idea. It may just be, as I kind of see it, you know, just good for the moment, but not good for long term. Same thing with Cody Rhodes. If they did Cody versus Roman part 3, you know, I think then you kind of set up WrestleMania and the path to it for the next year. But if you do Swerve versus, going through a bunch of more opponents and having the championship a little bit longer and actually treat him like a real champion, and maybe say at World's End you give it to MJF, that could be a really big path, really, you know, for Swerve, you know. So that would just do a lot more. And as I said, one thing about Ospreay, we've seen what he can do, really. But Swerve, we've not seen what he can do. So I think keeping the title on Swerve would be better. But at the end result, really, there has to be a day where Ospreay becomes champion, and I don't think Forbidden Door is the right option for him. I think Forbidden Door 2025 would be the better one. So a lot of people would say, okay, he actually deserves it because he actually spent time with the company. He wasn't just a flash in the pan champion, just like with Okada and Mercedes Moné, you know. So that's all I gotta say, you know. So it's definitely something. I think the last thing that you kind of say about Will Ospreay is that a lot of people can look at him as a privileged champion, and there's a lot of that in wrestling, but that would work for Ospreay. He says, like, he flies in on a private jet, or he says something like, you know, I don't feel like coming to the U.S., so I'm going to be lazy. People are booing, and then people are like, we want a real fighting champion. But that's kind of been overdone in wrestling. But you can kind of do that as well, really. So there are a lot of, like, things you can do with Ospreay as champion, a lot of great ideas. And, you know, we'll see what happens at Forbidden Door.